Hi there. Welcome back to Stationeers. So this is part 4 of our greenhouse setup, and today should be the last day of doing this, at least getting it set up in its most basic form. There's two things we need to do, both of which pretty straightforward things. One of them is going to be getting up a grow light, and the other is going to be getting up some kind of filtration system. So yeah, we're gonna do that today. I have printed out an IC housing, and I've also printed out a circuit. And another thing I'm going to need, not made in here, in the pipe bender, is a atmospherics kit. So the idea is going to be, well, we've got our cooling, that's working. We have our CO2 intake, which is obviously taking CO2 in when we need it. And we've also got our water set up and connected, all good. We made it as a big metal box because we want to carefully control the grow light so that we don't overstress our plants. Because plant stress is a thing in this game. Let me chuck this on the floor. Where did that atmospherics thing go? Oh, it's there. We're going to need pipes. So yeah, let me think. We've got the vent, we've got the atmospherics. How many vents do we have? We're gonna need that'll probably be fine actually. So make sure you've got your IC housing, you've got your atmospherics, you've got your circuit. You're gonna need some pipes. Probably need more pipes than that. So give yourself a fair few pipes and some insulators as well. In case you end up having to run a pipe on a corner. Yeah, so like I was saying, we built the box because the sun can have an effect on your plants, which is good. If you can use natural light, the plants will benefit better. You get a 100% growth bonus. By using just the grow light, which we have in our starting kit, they only get an 80% growth bonus. So it's not perfect, but it's also... You're doing it this way, you'll be absolutely fine. You'll still have more food than you need. The grow light can be placed either on the wall or on the ceiling. As this is still our very first greenhouse, we haven't really set it up. We haven't built it great, so we can't really put like automation in here later for automating the growth of our crops. So all we're going to do is we're going to put the grow light on the ceiling. Quick note on the grow light. The grow light can do a 7x7 area. The center of the grow light is the power port. So here, I can't really, let me place it down. So there's your grow light. You got your data connection, your power connection. It does a 7x7 area with the middle being here. So from this point, it will be 3 blocks that way, 3 blocks that way, 3 blocks that way. And by block, we're talking about the size of a passive vent. So 3 passive vents across, it would technically light up this space. Obviously, we've got a wall on this side. And the same in this direction. So we'd probably light up outside the wall. And then over here would be about up to here. Plenty of space. If you're a single player, then one grow light is going to do you for as many plants as you need, eating-wise. So, I need some more cable. Let's quickly go and do that. One of the very basic items in the game. You never got enough cable. Let's do that. So yeah, we're going to do that. And then the second thing that we need to do... I've got no copper. Yes, I have. Is we're going to need a kind of like an air scrubber. So obviously we used this guy, which is great. We can even dock this guy to a connector and then have him connected to a pipe network. But you can't automate this. And we are all about automation. The aim of the game, well, my aim in the game anyway, is to kind of not have to do anything. So ideally you want everything to be just run itself, and eventually you can just stand here and just survive. That's kind of how I like to play. So that's why we made the atmospherics, because we were going to want to filter out any crap out of the air. Now, in theory, there shouldn't be any crap, because as you know, our tank out there is phase changing our pollutant. So we've got that drain that's removing the liquid pollutant, but some may still get in here. So we're just going to account for that ready. So, cables. Get the grow light connected to your network, wherever that may be. You want to connect both the logic port and the power port. And realistically, that's logistically all you need for the light. That is on. We could turn it on. There we go. We could turn it off. Job's good. There are multiple ways to automate this light. It's all dependent on your setup as to what you want to do. You can connect it to your daylight sensor, so depending on where the sun is, it will come on. Using the daylight sensor again, you can just have it so that if the sun is above the horizon, turn it on. When it's below, turn it off. You can use the in-game stopwatch. You can use this to do calculations and like figure out whereabouts it is, and then reset the stopwatch, and that will turn the light on or off. But we're going to go for what I think is probably the more expensive option, but the easiest to set up. So we are going to just do a very basic timer. So for this, you're going to need a dedicated IC housing and a circuit. And what we're going to do is get that cabled up. And again, some people may say, no, you should do it this way, you should do it this way. My personal opinion is that this is easy. It has one caveat that which we'll go through shortly. But apart from that, I think this just works fine. Don't overcomplicate something if you don't need to. I'm going to rename the housing. Because now we have 2 on the network, when we're on our computer, you'll see that we have 2. It's very, very important that you make sure you're always checking this. Because what you don't want to do is override the code on this one. So make sure you've got grow light housing selected. Click import. If I was to pick the other one and click import, that's obviously the code that's on there. So make sure you have this selected. I can't tell you how many times I've overridden code. It's so annoying, especially if you haven't saved it. But there's our grow light anyway. So all we're going to do is we are going to turn the grow light on after a certain amount of time, turn it off after a certain amount of time. Now, the timings, you want to have a look in your Stationpedia. So we're going to be growing potatoes. I'm going to pause the game. So, if you scroll down, you will see light per day and darkness per day. So obviously they need 5 minutes of light per day and 3 minutes of darkness per day. In game, a day is around 20 minutes. So obviously based on that, you're going to really have a potato that's 10 minutes a day and probably like 6 minutes 40 and still have extra time. To begin with, don't worry too much about the calculations of exactly how much you need. It doesn't matter. All you need to do is make sure that you just provide this to the crops in equal measure. So give them 5 minutes and then give them 3 minutes 20 of darkness. Give them 5 minutes and give them 3 minutes 20 of darkness. It doesn't matter that it's not going to equate to 20. It's fine. The plants have a mutation mechanic, which is whatever you provide them, the light and the dark or the pressure or the temperature or whatever, they may be unhappy, but as time goes on, they will slowly adapt to what you have set up in the game. So if you do get some stress, don't worry about it. On the next cycle of the plant, it will do better. And we'll go through that a little bit later. But for now, we just want to set this up. So for 5 minutes, we want light, and then 3 minutes 20, we want dark. So because we've already touched on IC, I figured we'll just do this again. Why not? It's pretty straightforward, and hopefully you've kind of got a bit of a grasp on how this works. So obviously we're going to be communicating with the grow light. Make sure you pause your game when you're writing code so nothing's taking along. So I want to alias the grow light. That's it. That's all you need to alias. So we're going to do start, because that's the start of our loop. We're going to stick a yield in there just for safety. And then at the bottom, obviously, we're going to jump to start. So that will be our loop. We're going to alias the grow light. And then it will just cycle around this over and over and over again. In game, if you want to have something running for so long, you can use the sleep command. So we can do sleep. If you hover over it, pauses the IC for a seconds. So if I put 300 in there, that's going to make the code pause for 300 seconds or 5 minutes. Now, before that happens, we want to save to the grow light the on property as 1. So in your Stationpedia, do not find search for station, search for grow light. I can't spell today. Going very well. There's grow light. And you'll see that you've got an on property. That's obviously the on for the grow light. And that will be 1 for on, 0 for off. So when the code runs, we're going to save to the grow light the on as 1, turn it on, and then wait for 5 minutes. Then we're going to save to the grow light. Whoops. The on as 0, which is going to turn it off. And then we're going to sleep for 200. So remember, this is in seconds. And the potato wants 3 minutes 20, which is 200 seconds. So once we've done that, we sleep for 200. And then what it will do is it will cycle back to the start and it will turn the light back on. Then wait 5 minutes. It will turn it off. It will wait 3 minutes 20. It will go back up here, turn it on. And that is all this code is going to do. Now, there's a couple of caveats to this, which, you know, it's why you might want to look into other avenues, but this is the most bog standard way of doing this. The first caveat is that you cannot use this IC for anything else. So, like, if you remember, on our... Let me export that code first. So, export the code to your chip so that you're not going to lose it. So, if I import the other IC housing, in here we've got multiple things. We've got cooling in here, and we've got pressure checking. But in our grow light, because we are pausing the code, so the entire code stops here for 5 minutes. So we can't have anything else running. So you may look at it and go, well, that's a complete waste of an IC because I've got all of this stuff. And you'd be right, 100%. But it works. So for the small cost of an IC in the circuit, you can have a pretty bog standard and easy to set up grow light. That's caveat number 1. Caveat number 2 is that if power to that IC gets interrupted, the code will start over. So for example, if we stop generating power and that battery there becomes dead, then obviously the code will stop and it will restart. So if it was in the darkness period and then gets interrupted and restarts again, it will go back up here and turn it on. So it's possible that you may cause light stress to your plants. So when doing this particular method, it's important to have some sort of backup power, which is why we have everything feeding off an APC, because that APC is providing us a little bit of backup power. So if anything happens on that side, this will still maintain until that battery runs out. You'll also get the same issue whenever you, like, if this was running and I cut a cable, that will also cause the issue. So just bear that in mind. Chances are your plants will adapt. You probably aren't going to kill them, but just be aware of that thing. That is an issue. Other ways around this would be do the solar way of doing it. I'm just choosing not to do that. I'm just doing it this way because I think it's easier. You could also do the stopwatch way of doing it, but you still kind of run into the same issue, so it might not be a way of avoiding this caveat. But in all honesty, make sure you've got your backup power and just write your code like that, and that'll be fine. So if I get my screwdriver and I set this to the grow light, which is there, turn it on, and there we go. Our light is on. Easy peasy. And then just a note. So obviously that is now counting down. But if I was to turn this off, turn this off, turn it back on, that is going to restart the code. Or it's not. Interesting. It might have just paused. You may have to pull the chip out and put it back in for that to restart. Let me try it. So link it out, put it back in. Yeah, there you go. That's the code restarting. And that is simulating the power, kind of turning it off, turning it back on again. So just bear that in mind. But that's it. You've got grow light automation. Easy peasy. Second thing is we want to do our filtration. So get your atmospherics kit. And in all honesty, it doesn't really matter where you put this. So let's just stick it over here, I guess. Is as good a place as any. Yeah, this is fine. I'm going to put it there. And you'll need pipes to get that guy built. Followed by the screwdriver. I need some cable. Okay, this is a filtration device. So this comes from the atmospherics kit. So if we search for atmospherics. Come on, where are you? There. So this kit, there are 5 different devices that you can build. The air conditioner is used to cool a space or heat up a space. Filtration is what we're going to go through. Electrolyzer, I can't remember what that one does. Oh, so splits water into hydrogen and oxygen. Although I don't think it'll be hydrogen, I think it'll be potentially volatile. Your H2 combustor combines oxygen and volatile to produce water. And then the neutralizer is a way for you to produce NOS, which is used for a much higher or much better fuel source. Not something we're going to get into on the tutorial series. But this is the filtration. So you've got the green panel there. That will just give you details on when it's running. You've got a little slot here, so you can give it its own IC. So it will work as an IC housing, but this only has 2 pins. You obviously got your on and off switch. You've got 2 slots for filters, so we could put a volatile filter and a pollutant filter in there. And then you've got an output, so this is your filtered gas. You've got another output, this is output 2, which is your unfiltered gas. And then you've got an input. And then on the back, you've got a power connection and a data connection. So let's get those both kitted first. Yep, we've already got our cable there, so that's perfect. So I can turn this on and it'll error. It's erroring because it has to have all 3 connections. So the idea of this is going to be that we pull in room atmosphere. We filter out the volatile and the pollutant, which will go this way. And then the unfiltered, which will be the room atmosphere, goes back into the room. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the output 2. Remember, this is our unfiltered connection. And I'm going to feed that into the input. What we're going to do is we're going to connect this up to our room ventilation. Remember, on any corners, use insulated pipes. Or on anything where it's the outside world, use insulated so we don't affect that pipe on the outside. And then use your normal pipes on the inside. So we're going to connect this up to our passive vents. Like so. Make sure you don't connect to your cooling because that is a separate thing. We want to connect to our passive vents. Like so. So if we get our tablet, we'll see that obviously that pipe now contains the same composition as the room. Easy. The output, we don't want. So what I'm going to do is the output, I'm just going to dump that outside. So you'll need to go and take a passive vent. Let's go and do that. I should have vented my waste tank in here. Never mind, I'll do it when I come back. We've got no storm coming, so we're fine. So your output is going to be around here somewhere. There you go. Look, it's going yellow. That's where my pipe is. I'm just going to put a passive vent there. What I would always do as well is if you're going to put a passive vent outside, just make sure it's got enough space to function. Sometimes if it thinks terrain is in the way, it won't allow you to expel from it. So just give it enough space. Now you can see there that pipe network has pollutant in it. That's because Mars is going into that passive vent into that pipe. Don't worry about that. It's fine. It can't make its way back into your system through the filtration. In that direction anyway. So don't worry about it. What we're going to do as well is we're going to print out another circuit. You're doing a lot of IC today, so well done if you're managing to keep up with this, because that's great. But basically what we're going to do is, if there is any pollutant or volatile in that room, we want that filter to start working. We don't want it on all the time, because that's a waste of power, and you will also use the filters. We don't need that. We only need it on when needed. So, go back to your greenhouse. Don't forget as well, we can breathe in here. I keep forgetting about that. So I'm going to take my suit off. Just enjoy a little bit of breathing atmosphere. So you can stick your circuit in there. And if you, depending on what you're going to do, you can use the pins. But we're not going to use the pins. We don't need to do that. It's fine. So, there's two ways we could do this. Basically, we need this to turn on when there is either pollutant or volatile in the room. We can either find that information out from a sensor, or we can read that information from the input or filtration, unfiltered output. I'm going to use the sensor. That is just a personal preference. Some people say you can write the code and then you just read from these, because if you look at the filtration, you can read like the ratio of oxygen on the input, the ratio of CO2 on the input. You can also read the output and output 2. Output 2 is the unfiltered connection. But with how we're setting this up, that pipe will change constantly. Because remember, the pipe itself, even though it's connected to the room via passive vents, is technically a separate system. So what can happen is, if this is on, let's say we set this up so it was looking for any pollutant in that pipe, which is fine, you could do that. Because of how quickly it would, it might draw in all of the pollutant in that pipe in one go. And then it might go, oh, there's no more in there, so let me turn myself off or turn my mode off, whatever. But then the room's going to put some more stuff into the pipe, and it's going to go, oh, I can see some now, let me turn myself back on. And you might get an on-off issue. Some people say read that information from the output, which you can do, but I'm just not going to. Personal preference, do what you want. We're going to read from the sensor the ratio of volatile or pollutant. If there is any, turn this on. And yeah, that'll work absolutely fine. Now, because we're going to be putting the code on here, we can't turn this off, because this works as an IC housing does. So if I turn that off, that code isn't running. Same here. If I turn this off, that code isn't running. So we aren't going to be using the on property. We're going to be using the mode property. Again, the mode is different for different devices. On the filtration, here's your mode. Idle means 0, so it's going to sit there and not do anything. It'll use a little bit of power, but not as much as it would do if it was active. But we're going to control this. So remember, go to your computer, find your filtration, import, and now you're working on the filtration. We haven't lost the code from the other two. So, we're going to start as we always do. We're going to alias the devices. So we are going to alias the sensor to D0. remember that the filter only has 2 pins, so you couldn't alias more than 2 devices using pins. We're also going to alias the filter, but we're going to do that as dB. In IC, dB refers to the device that is running the code. So on here, the housing is the dB. This housing is the dB. Because the code's on this filter, the filter is the dB. We're just doing that. If you want to, you don't have to alias. You would just refer to it as dB. It doesn't make sense in my head. But we're going to give it a name of filter. And then we'll be loading information from the filter. But here, technically, we have another pin. We still have D1 as a pin, as you can see here. But we're just not going to be using it. So it's fine. So, start, yield, jump to start. So the first thing we want to do is we want to know, is there any volatile or pollutant in the room? Because we need to know whether our filter needs to come on. So I'm going to go to the sensor, because that is where we're going to be reading our information from, and we already have one in the room. And here you can see we've got ratio, water, nitrous, liquid, The only ones we're going to be checking for is ratio pollutant and ratio volatiles. It's very unlikely that anything else is going to exist in the greenhouse that we don't want. So we're only going to worry about those two. So we are going to load into R0 from the sensor, it's not a sensor, the ratio volatiles. And then what we're going to do is we're going to check, do we have any? So set greater than. So if we have a ratio of, I don't know, say they've got 1% of volatile, then R0 will be 0.01. That'll be the ratio. We want to check, is that ratio greater than 0? So we're going to set greater than, we're going to put the result into R0, and we're checking if R0 is greater than 0. Now if you wanted to, you could also do greater than 0. Works the same kind of way. So we can put the result into R0, and we're just checking if R0 is greater than 0. Okay, that's another way of doing it. Again, multiple ways of doing something. Either would work, it doesn't matter. So here we're going to either get a 1 or a 0 depending on if we have any volatile in the room. We want to do the same check on pollutant. So we're going to just copy that code. But this time we're looking for pollutant. This needs to go into R1 because we're going to combine these checks later. So we're loading into R0 whether we've got any volatile. Obviously we're doing the check there whether we've got any volatile. Then we're going to load into R1. And then again, same piece of code. Just going to do R1, R1. So load the ratio of pollutant. So if we've got 0, this will be 0. At which point, this isn't going to be a thing. So then what we need to do is if any of these are true, turn that filter on. So some people may not even do this check. They may do pollutant because they're going to say, I'm not going to get volatile. We're just being a little bit careful here. We're checking for everything. So don't get confused between and or. So if you use and, it means that anything you put in here, they both have to equate to true for the result to be true. So if we use an and, so if we did this, for example, what we're saying is R0 becomes a 1 if R0 and R1 are a 1. Might not happen. We might not have volatile and pollutant in the room. We may only have one of them. If we have pollutant but not volatile, this will fail because it will say, oh, we haven't got both. That's where we want to use the or. The or will equate to true or a 1 if either R0 or R1 is true. So this is what we want. So we're loading the ratio and we're checking if it's greater than 0. We're loading the ratio, we're checking if it's greater than 0. If any of those are greater than 0, this becomes a 1. And then all we need to do is save to the DB or filter, because we aliased it, so we can refer to it as the filter. The mode is R0. Remember, we're doing mode because if we do the on, this will turn off the filter and the filter will no longer run the code. So that is why we're doing mode. So that should do it. So again, we're checking the ratio of volatiles, checking that it's greater than 0, checking the ratio of pollutant, checking that it's greater than 0. If any of them are greater than 0, we're changing the mode to 1. If both of those are not, or if all of this is 0, this will be 0, so it will just make it idle. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. So I'm going to click confirm. And make sure you've got your filtration selected. As you can see I have. I'm going to export. So, at the moment it's off, so nothing is happening. If I turn this on, it's erroring because we have not set our pin. So, on your D0, you need to find your sensor. Which I think we just call, oh, it's called greenhouse sensor. Which is that one. Now let's turn it on. There we go. It's not erroring. And you can see if I hover over the green panel, it says idle. So it isn't doing anything. It's just sat there. It's using a little bit of power. But at this point, power shouldn't be an issue. If it is, you need to go and scale it up. So build some more solar panels, build some more wind turbines, do whatever you want to do to get more power. But as we can see, that's currently fine. So we can probably test this by doing something stupid. Let's drop some volatile in here. Now, you should never ever do this. Obviously, because if volatile reacts to oxygen at the right temperature, it will combust and you will have a fire. But we're at 16 degrees, we're not going to cause a fire. So I'm going to split one of those and let it melt in my hand.
Toxin critical.
Oh, crap. Yep, be careful of
that. Waste tank caution.
Yep, I've now poisoned my guy. He's fine. It's fine. But now in here, look, you can see we've got volatile. But we can see it's going down. Because a volatile has been detected, the mode is now active. It's gone, whoa, there's volatile in here. Let's get that out. Now, you can see it's a little bit slow. We did chuck in an entire block of ice. So that is a little bit, you know, taking its time. We can do one better here. We can make this quicker. The way to do that is, if you have a look, the process input is 4 mol. You've got a pressure differential of 0 PA. What that is it's the difference in pressure between the input and output 2. So if we, basically you want output 2 to be a lesser pressure than the input. That way it's taking in a high pressure and it's dumping it into a low pressure. It just works better. It's more efficient. And we can do that with a pump. So let me go and get a pump made. And I'll show you this little tidbit. Tidbit, is that the word? It's the word I'm going with. So, go to your pipe bender and search for pump. Get one of these printed. And then head back on to inside. And what you want to do is you want to put that pump on this pipe network here. So I'm going to take this out. I'm going to put a pump in there. I would turn off your filter while you're doing this. Because if you don't, it will be pumping into that pipe. And look, we're at 8 megapascal. Not great. So make sure you turn this off if you're making changes. Get your pump connected to power. So I can't remember if we've gone through a pump. We have. We've touched on the pump. But obviously, as you said, as you know, you max this out if you want to, or don't. So do whatever you want to do, and then you can just turn the pump on, and it will just pump from one pipe to another pipe. Easy. By having this pump here, we turn this on. We should see that the process input should increase. Interesting. What speed have I got that in? 10 liters. Maybe I'm lying to you. That is not doing what I thought it was going to do. Let me increase the volume of that pipe just somewhat. Huh. That is not reacting the way I thought it was going to. Interesting. Well, ignore that. That's not working. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Everything's fine. It's probably just because the pump is not working as efficiently as this. I mean, to be honest, I don't really... Because I've done this before. I don't know why that isn't working now. That is very interesting. I'll have a play with that. Yeah. I mean, it's fine anyway. It's still going to work. It's still going to work. We could use a better pump there if we wanted to. In all honesty, I'm just going to remove that pump because it's using power that we don't need. Well done, Ryan. This is a great tutorial. You did something that doesn't work. Amazing. Yeah, aren't I just? Let me borrow that pipe segment. Put that there. Do that. And put that back. Okay. So we should now see that'll just start working again. Which it is. Which is good. And we've got that volatile in there is such a small amount. Look, we're on less than 0.5%. I've got my helmet open. It isn't hurting me. But we know that that filter is just going to eventually clean the air out. Which is absolutely fine. But now you have a automated grow light, room filtration, we've got room cooling, and CO2 intake. That is it. You've got a greenhouse which works. There is nothing else you need to do in here. What I'm going to do is turn off my grow light housing. Turn off that light because what I want this to do is I want it to start the cycle again when I put the potatoes in. So, grab your potato seeds and maybe what you want to do is you want to ensure that this is going to work. You don't want to just chuck all your seeds in because you've only got 3 to start with. So for now, we're going to chuck in a single potato. If I point at it, it's thriving towards fruiting. So the requirements of this room are perfect. It's thriving. Now, obviously, what happens is they take light stress, but we're going to get into that now. But let me turn on my housing. The light will come on. And our potato is still happy. Perfect. So, we're going to do one other thing. We are going to go and make... I don't think we start with one. Let's check. But we're going to make a plant analyzer cartridge. Don't think we started with one. We didn't, no. So go to your electronics printer. And search for plant. And you want the plant analyzer. Need some gold. But get this guy made. And then what you want to do is you want to put that cartridge in your tablet. So this will let you basically read the stats of your plants. So if I point it at... Oh, make sure you change your cartridge. So there we go. Look, we can see that we've got a grow efficiency of 97%. So breathing 101, which means you're smashing it on the atmosphere. We've got a temperature efficiency of 95. It's a little bit cold in here. If you look at the potato, the temperature, wherever you are. Oh, so the minimum ideal grow temperature is 20. Obviously, it will grow above 0, but we want 20 degrees. At the moment, we've got 17. But it's not really affecting it. It's still thriving. Why is my light off? Let's try that again. Do you? There we go. Yeah, so it's fine. The temperature it will slowly increase in this room. We're not bothered. Obviously the min and max they will change depending on the cycles of plants that you do. So when we harvest and put it back down, they may change each time. A pressure efficiency is 100. It wants a pressure between 50 and 99 kPa. We're currently on 69.1. perfectly fine. We've got a light efficiency of 97%. We've got a little bit of stress on the illumination just here. There is always, well, you're probably always going to see some stress, but don't worry about it too much. You don't want this too high. If it is high, chances are the light deficiency or the darkness deficiency are a problem. And if they are, that text will go red. Now, if you've got your grow light automated, then it won't be an issue. It'll just sort itself out. It'll be fine. Hydration efficiency is 100%. That's pretty much always 100 because we've got water. You've got to bear in mind that the temperature of the water will affect your plants, but that isn't documented anywhere. So that's why we're using non-insulated pipes, because that will just change to whatever temperature the room is. You can see we've currently got 17.5, and that is perfectly fine. Just leave it like that. You can see carbon dioxide, it requires 1%. We've got 73%. Perfectly fine. Pollutant, there's a limit of 1 kPa. We've got none. And volatile, there's a limit of 1 kPa. We've got 140 pascals. And it's coming down because our filter is on. So having trace amounts of stuff isn't going to hurt. Just make sure you've got the build required to sort it out. But yeah, if you got to this, well done, because you have successfully built a greenhouse which can sustain not only yourself but also your plants. And because this is working, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to chuck in both my other potato seeds. Now, again, if you're unsure about anything, don't do this, because if they all die, we've got no seeds. At which point, it's a bit uh-oh. We've got some soybeans and some wheat, but I'm going to save those for later. We're not going to worry about those right now. Let's just check that we can get some potatoes coming through, shall we? But that is it. You have got everything you need. So we're just going to cover over it again to make sure you understand what we've built. So we did our ice crusher, and we wrote this 0. So when we put ice in there, water ice only, then we're obviously getting water going in our pipe. This is where we're drinking from. Lovely jubbly. We are using non-insulated pipes on the inside so that they constantly maintain the room temperature, which is what we want. And we've got a little bit of a backup in here. Remember that the tank is a separate network to the pipe. So you'll see the pipe currently has 64.6. The tank has 63.8. So actually, altogether, we've got over 120 litres of water. It's going to last ages. So you don't need to stress about water. After we did the water, we then touched on the CO2 intake. So outside, we have a tank, which we automated with IC for the first time. And we are collecting CO2, well, we're collecting Mars atmosphere into a tank, which is then being held there until we need it. So as we can see in that pipe segment, we've got oxygen, CO2 and nitrogen. That gets pulled into the room when required via IC, and keeps our CO2 at a nice high amount of pressure. After we did that, we then did the cooling. So again, we automated this. So depending on the temperature of the room, again, via IC, we have our cooling valve that will turn on, and using Mars atmosphere will cool the room down. Remember, this is a closed system on the inside. This does not connect to your atmospheric system anywhere. So do not connect that, otherwise you're going to have problems. And then after our cooling last time, this time we have set up our grow light, which is on a very simple to use code. It comes on for 5 minutes, then turns off for 3 minutes 20. Remember, that is dependent on the power. If you interrupt the system in any way, then it may restart the code, so just bear that in mind. Always, always, always have your greenhouse on the output of an APC. Or, better yet, give it its own power source and large station batteries. Remember, we've got the big batteries out there. Nothing stopping you from bringing a battery into your greenhouse and having it have its own power reserve. Absolutely fine. But yeah, we've got the grow light working. Plants are happy. And then lastly, but not least, we set up the filtration. Again, not required as such, but if you get this in sooner rather than later, then you are going to account for any future problems you might have, like melting volatile ice in your hand. But that's it. You've got all the pieces to build your very first greenhouse. And I will just say again, everything that I have shown you here may not be the best way to do something. For me, if I was a new player, this is what I would probably want to work towards. Other people might disagree. There's people out there who will say, no, don't do your water that way. Don't do your grow light that way. This is inefficient. Do this, do that. And they're probably absolutely right. But if you can do this as the bare minimum, get your greenhouse just working, you can then spend time and improve the systems. Maybe your cooling isn't keeping up, so maybe look into using some ACs or something. Maybe you don't like this filtration. If we were to put a turbo pump there, that would probably fix that problem. But the efficiency on this is fine. I'm not bothered. Look, the volatile is almost gone. So we're okay with that. You did your first bit of IC. Some people might say, oh, the sleep code you've got on the grow light is a bit of a waste of an IC. Use the daylight. And yeah, we can do that. Not gonna. You play the game however you want to play. Hopefully this video or these videos are just helping you get in the right direction for you to then want to go out there and improve your own setups. Remember, there's no right or wrong way of doing something unless it blows up, in which case, yeah, you might have done it wrong. But so far, we haven't died, we've got potatoes growing, we have a self-sustaining greenhouse, and we can run around in this room butt naked like a happy little Larry. Oh, I'm stuck in the tank. So all is good in here. Thus ends the greenhouse portion of the tutorial. Hopefully this helps. I have no doubt there will be comments where there might be bits that I've got wrong, that someone might say, no, do this instead, or someone might go, that's great, but do everything different. So go and take a look. And remember, any questions you've got, ask in Discord, either Panic and Die Discord or the Stationeers Discord, or you could put a comment on YouTube and I'll try and get back to you if it's something that I can help with. So, I hear you asking, well, now you're in the greenhouse, what's next? Well, you have the bare essentials needed to survive. You've got your workshop and you've got your greenhouse. In theory, if I can keep on top of my water and keep replacing my filters, this system will just go on forever. I can survive. I won at the game. Yay! No, it doesn't end there. There is so much more to the game, and we will be touching on other parts. So I think a nice thing to show you next time will probably be trading. Because we're at a point now where nothing's really urgent. We are fine. We're going to have food. We're going to have water. When the food comes in, I'll show you how to store that. We're waiting for the potatoes to grow. But I think trading might be a nice little mechanic that you can have a look at. Some people don't like trading. I personally don't mind it. But yeah, we will touch on that next time. We've got all the steel, so we might as well. So again, thank you for watching. I hope this video has helped. Take care, and I will see you next time. Bye.